Well, welcome everybody. My name is Peter Giannopoulos. I am the new president and CEO of the United Way Fox Cities. And do we have a treat for you today? So I'm really excited about the panelists that we have speaking for us in regards to health and education in our community. So as you know, the United Way, one of our top priorities is focused on the well-being as well as the education of students in our community. And you have some of the best speakers in my eyes, people that have worked in this group for many years, many that I've worked with over the past few years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to introduce Nicole, Kelly, Jamie, and Rachel. So stay tuned, and I look forward to learning more about what they have to share.
Thank you so much, Peter. And actually, before we introduce our panelists, I have a few things I'm going to share. So I am actually going to be sharing my screen here for just a little bit for all of you to see some slides here. So first of all, I just, like Peter, want to welcome and thank you all for coming on to join this part 2 of our series, This Story Starts With You. And we are very excited you are here to learn about our education partners that we are working with. Just quick housekeeping notes. If you could, for now, remain on mute, but you will have a chance to ask questions later. If you would like to actually ask your question out loud, you can raise your hand and our panel moderator will at some point call on you to be able to ask your question. We do want this to be an interactive panel. Otherwise, you can certainly submit your questions in the Q&A box, and we will get to those at some point during the panel discussion. This is also being recorded and will be shared to all the registrants, people that registered for this, and it'll also be posted on our website and YouTube channel for others to view as well. Just a quick reminder, this is a 4-part series, so we did part 1 last month. If you'd like to see the recording of that, you can certainly go to our website. Part 2 is right now. Part 3 and part 4 are coming up in future months. Part 3 in July. We're skipping August because in August we have our community campaign kickoff, which we certainly hope you attend, and you'll learn even more about United Way Fox Cities then. And then part 4 will take place in September, where you'll learn all about ALICE and get to take part in an ALICE simulation. So as I said, today we are focusing on education, and you're going to talk to some of our wonderful partners that we work with and invest in for educational programming. We're specifically kind of focusing on both direct and supportive services around education. So quick couple little trivia for you, and I'm throwing an initial softball one at you, I believe, and I'd love you to use the chat box to answer what you believe is the correct answer to this. I'm trying to open mine, but fact or fiction? Ensuring our children and youth are on track to reach their full potential requires a holistic approach. Go ahead and throw in the chat what you think, fact or fiction. For some reason, my chat box is not opening, so I apologize. I'm not able to see what others are chatting. So depending on what you answered, I'll just show you. The answer is fact. And United Way Fox Cities, we are very holistic in our approach in working with our partners and trying to bring forth solutions to the challenges that exist in education today. As you can see, we have a wide breadth of partners that we work with and invest in to bring forth those solutions to the challenges that we are existing in today's education. Another trivia for you, and I'm going to work hard to try and get my chat box to open this time, but fact or fiction? 1 in 8 children ages 2 to 8 years has a mental, behavioral, or social developmental disorder. 1 in 8. What do you think? Is that fact or is that fiction? I really wish I could see the answers, but I can't. Maybe one of my panelists can unmute and tell me what they're seeing, if they're seeing anything.
And Andrew, it looks like we do have some coming in. We have fact, fiction, kind of a mixture of both. Some thoughts that feels low. Like a
all right, thank you so much, Megan. I greatly appreciate that. And I was going to show the answer. Now it's actually fiction, and I threw a little curveball this time at you, because the truth is it's 1 in 6, not 1 in 8. 1 in 6 children ages 2 to 8 has a mental, behavioral, or social developmental disorder. So it just really shows you that we have quite a few challenges, especially at the early childhood level, that we need to be addressing. And as we all know, early childhood experiences impact you and last a lifetime, whether they're for the good or for the not so good. But it's extremely critical phase of every individual. Up to 90% of your brain development will take place at that first 3 to 5 years. And they really establish what their capacity for learning is at those very young ages. So recognizing that, along with a couple other stats I want to show you here. One thing you're seeing is results of our life study, leading indicators for excellence that we help participate in here in the Fox Cities area. And what you're seeing is the percentage of free and reduced lunches, the eligibility of students that are eligible for free and reduced lunch locally here in the Fox Cities. Now, the white is about 22 to 23%. And if you look at the other eligibility rates for the other populations, you can see they're up around the 70 to 75 percentile. So what this is framing up is those that are economically disadvantaged. And what you're seeing now is once again, the life study, the third grade reading scores of students that are both economically disadvantaged and non-economically disadvantaged, and what the difference is. They're being taught in the same schools with the same teachers, using the same reading strategies. The only difference is they come from a family that is economically disadvantaged. They're scoring on average close to about 30% lower than their peers with third grade reading scores. Now, why is this so important? And I've always used to wonder, why do they always talk about third grade reading scores? Why not second grade or eighth grade or seventh grade? There's a really important shift that happens at the third grade level, where students are going from learning to read to reading to learn. So now they're expected to be able to pick up the textbooks and the worksheets and everything and read it and learn. And if they can't, if they're behind, like you saw a lot of people are, they'll be very hard pressed to catch up. So that kind of leads us to this quote here that David Brooks put in the New York Times. It says, by age 5, it's pretty close to be able to predict who's going to be able to complete high school and college and who won't. At such an early age, we're able to kind of have those kind of predictions. So that's the stark reality that we live in. And so we realize at United Way that we really need to set the stage on a solid foundation for our children to be able to have that bright future for themselves and their family in future years. And the partners you're going to hear from today, every single one of them play a critical role along this path to really helping to set that foundation and that bright future for these children and all their families. So with that, I am going to stop showing my screen, and I can see all of our wonderful panelists again. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Megan Sherwood, who is going to be our panel moderator today. So Megan.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you again to our panelists, and welcome everyone for joining us today. Like we've said, we have the experts from some of our partners that really focus on education, and we're very thankful to have you here today to present some information about your organizations and what we're seeing, and answer any questions that our attendees might have. So before we get started and any questions, I would like to just let our panelists introduce themselves and their organizations a little bit. I will select you to go and introduce yourselves. So let's start with Kelly, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Sure. My name is Kelly Hicks. I am the Executive Director of Youth Go in Neenah. We're a drop-in center for kids in 5th through 12th grade. We've been around for about 52 years. Started because there was a need for kids in this area to have a safe place, and we continue to do that work. We provide education, recreation, and support and wellness programming for young people, primarily in Neenah and Menasha, but we do serve any youth that can get to us.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Kelly. Let's go next to Rachel.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Rachel Schrader. I'm the Senior Director of Youth Development Services for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Fox Valley. So we're an organization that serves youth as well. Typically in the Youth Development Services Department, our programming looks a lot like a before and after school type of support system in 9 area schools in Appleton, Little Chute, and Menasha. And then we also have programming that we offer as well at our Appleton and Menasha branches, as well as a youth and family services side of our organization that focuses on things like counseling and closing the opportunity gap for our Black youth in our communities, and track and Center for Grieving Children and things like that.
Thank you, Rachel. Jamie, let's go to you next.
Good morning, everyone. Jamie Krewall, Chief Executive Officer with Big Brothers Big Sisters of East Central Wisconsin. Together with mentors or volunteers and families and our community partners, Big Brother Big Sisters provides lifelong mentoring relationships to youth ages 6 to 18 in Calumet, Outagamie, Wapaka, and Winnebago counties. We're very fortunate that all of our programs are supported through the United Way Fox Cities. And a little uniqueness is we really tailor our programs to fit the needs of the volunteers and youth. So we have community-based mentoring all the way to school-based to workplace mentoring.
Great, thank you so much, Jamie. And last but definitely not least, Nicole.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Dustin, and I am the Executive Director of Bridges Child Enrichment Center. We are a nonprofit childcare center located here in Appleton at the Community Early Learning Center. And we have been around for about almost 50 years. I know a lot of people sometimes are surprised to hear that United Way funds a childcare center because there's obviously a lot of childcare centers out there. We do provide care for children 6 weeks old to 13 years of age. And I think what makes us unique, we're certainly very grateful and honored to be a United Way partner. But we really are trying to provide a high quality childcare and learning opportunities for all children in our community, regardless of the barriers they may face. So, whether that's economic barriers, language barriers, special needs barriers. So United Way helps fund a couple programs for us. One is a tuition assistance program, which is pretty straightforward. It supplies scholarship and tuition assistance to families that are struggling to afford high quality childcare. The other program is recently fairly new, and it's called Systems of Support. And that program is actually designed to find ways to support our teaching staff so that we can retain high quality teachers and in turn support the children that are here, especially around a lot of the social emotional challenges that we've seen in recent years. So I'm very honored to be here this morning. I look forward to questions.
Great, thank you so much, Nicole. And as you can see, we have some really experts in the field who are serving some very important needs in our community and making sure that education is available and accessible for all. So thank you all again for joining us. We do have some pre-prepared questions, but if you have questions while our panelists are providing information, please feel free to put those in the Q&A or the chat, and we will get to those as well. We do have some time for questions. So if you have a burning question that you'd like to get out of your brain right away, feel free to put that out there and we will get to that. But our first question today, just to kind of set the table, is for our panelists. And again, we'll kind of go around and select you, but what is the current state of our youth and what are you seeing in your organizations? Rachel, let's start with you.
Sounds good. Thank you. So, I think it's no surprise that kids and youth have been significantly affected by what's been going on in the past year and a half in their worlds. And as we've kind of started our summer programming and have larger number of youth in our buildings, it's also clear to us that most aren't adjusting well to the changes and transitions in their lives. So we're seeing things like more behavioral challenges, lack of emotional regulation skills, and to combat that, our organization is focusing on providing more emotional support in our structures, things like enhancing our counseling services and hiring our organization's first youth advocate recently as well. We also know that mental and physical health contributes to your ability to learn. So I think, we've absolutely seen a decrease in learning engagement with the youth. I think that the climate around race has also had a significant impact on learning. Our work on behalf and with students of color has given us access to lots of incidents and problems that young people of color face in our area schools. Looking at survey results that we've generated from a group of Black students that we serve demonstrates that they see their school systems as being racist, and they therefore don't feel safe or cared for. And when they're not engaged by their school climate because of a lack of a sense of belonging, it negatively impacts their ability to learn. So that's kind of what we've been seeing.
Thank you, Rachel. Kelly, let's go to you next.
All right. Well, with the start of the pandemic, one of the things that we noticed right away is a lot of our families were struggling financially. That sort of tipped us off to what else can we do. So we did begin offering more basic needs support to our families, especially during the time that we were closed. We started offering food baskets and also some personal hygiene products. And we have continued offering those food baskets and will at least throughout the end of the calendar year. It was a need that we knew existed, but I think that the pandemic really showed us how prevalent that was. We also, as I'm sure most people are aware, virtual school is hard. It was challenging in so many different ways. As a parent, I saw it in my own house. And, you know, as somebody that works with young people, we definitely saw it in our kids here. And being home was hard. Home is not always the safest place. And I think because of that, we're seeing increased trauma in the young people that we work with. You know, kind of like Rachel said, there's, you know, they have dealt with a lot more and they're having trouble regulating all of that. And in turn, we've also seen some increased resiliency in other kids. You know, everybody manages things differently. And so we're doing the best we can as an organization to meet the needs of the young people that are walking through our door, and in doing that however we can. So.
Thank you, Kelly. And that's a great point. And, you know, Rachel, what you had mentioned as well, that the pandemic really did kind of magnify some of those issues that were already there. So it sounds, you know, like your organizations are doing a great job to kind of meet those needs that were already there, that were highlighted by that. So thank you both. Nicole, let's go to you next.
So since Bridges serves primarily children birth to 5, right, what we're seeing is a little bit different. You know, there's a lot, I guess there's a wide range of what we're seeing in children right now, and a lot depended on what their family circumstances were during the pandemic, right? For some of our little ones, life was wonderful, right? Their parents were home, everyone was there, they got, you know, great interaction time and extended family time. And so they flourished, right? It was just like extended maternity leave for some of our families. But for others, we're seeing them as they start to come back into the centers that they're not reaching their benchmarks, or they've regressed with their skills. You know, right? They were home with a toddler who didn't talk. And so a preschooler wasn't talking for a year because they had no peer interactions. They weren't going anyplace. So they've regressed and are coming back to us now and have some developmental delays. Or we have babies who aren't reaching benchmarks because they have been on mom's lap for the last 6 months because she's been Zooming and doing her work on a computer. So rather than getting tummy time and crawling around the floor, right, for supervision reasons, they haven't seen that. So we are also in our older children seeing a little bit of some of those social emotional concerns with our children and behavior and the self-regulation. And I think our population, age population in particular, picks up on the stresses of home, right? So when there's been those financial stresses or when there's been the issues, you know, the children have picked up on that. And we've definitely have seen that we have a need to support our families, right? This was a difficult time for them. And like Kelly said, some are homeschooling and they were trying to watch their child. They were also trying to work from home. They felt like they were bad parents. They felt like they were bad employees. And so we're trying to find ways to support those families as they come back to us. You know, in the birth to 5 arena right now, just having quality childcare is an issue. There were a lot of centers that didn't survive COVID or that are still operating at reduced capacity. So we're seeing really long waiting lists. We're seeing financial need, and we're seeing families that are calling around looking for care and can't find it.
Thank you, Nicole. And yes, what a unique perspective, obviously serving youth, preschool age, that there's kind of that different perspective too, like you said, that some babies did flourish because their parents were home. So thank you very much. And Jamie, let's go to you next.
Very similar to what has already been shared, as the pandemic wore on and the more we talked to families and littles, it was pretty clear that their world was being turned upside down. Our program team has shared that they have definitely seen an increase in child adversity, financial instability, just neglect and abuse happening in their homes. And a lot of it is due to that social isolation. I mean, even as adults, we thrive on that one-to-one in-person interaction. So again, very similar to what other organizations are seeing. We've also seen our mentors be extremely courageous and step up to the plate in ways that they've never had to before. Lots of kids struggling academically, so mentors stepping in and being tutors. We've seen an increase in our family support services. So it's definitely been a trying year for all of the families that we serve. And I think we're also just about to see even more effects. So some kids who have maybe done okay the past year, as we get back to normal, what does that mean for them?
Definitely. Thank you so much, Jamie. Our next question, and it kind of touched on it because obviously the pandemic has been so woven into our lives and the work that we've done in the last year. But is there anything anyone else would like to speak to related to how you continued services, or maybe how services changed during the pandemic and rising to meet the challenges of schools and childcare centers being closed? Is there anyone who would like to start first, maybe? Rachel?
Yeah, Megan, I'm happy to kind of kick that question off. Yes, we were able to work pretty quickly in March of 2020 in collaboration with our healthcare systems like ThedaCare to create childcare and youth development support for youth in our community, especially for those of essential healthcare workers. So we were super fortunate to have the staff that we had who were willing to continue the work in person with youth right away in March, which was a scary time. We also did things like ramped up to expand our food service department to provide emergency meals to the community. In 2020, we served about 115,000 meals to youth and families in the community from that program. We did things like developed over 150 educational program sessions online for any youth that were connected to our social media accounts. Our team members began doing home visits to help support teachers in our school systems who were reaching out and saying that they couldn't connect with youth who just kind of like disappeared from class. So we developed a home visit policy and a set of protocols for us to be able to go out and find youth. And then also working super closely with Appleton Area School District to operate the Classroom Connections program in collaboration with them from September to January to full day supports inside of the schools that we already have programs in to kind of provide that virtual classroom support instead of just an after school type of setting.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you to your team there, obviously, for filling those services and meeting those needs. Kelly, it looks like you might have something to add, so we'll move to you next.
Yeah, so we did close on March 17th, and we're closed for about 14 weeks. And, I give kudos to my staff because within 48 hours, they had created and developed virtual programming to reach out to our young people. And, when we're here, we try to have a variety of things going on so that everybody feels engaged and connected. And we had everything from staff available to tutor every day. Somebody developed a Minecraft server where our kids could gather online, and they actually built their own YouthGo inside of their own Minecraft world. We offered our LGBT support group via Zoom. We did all kinds of different trivia and events to bring our kids together to kind of help to combat some of that isolation that was going on. And then because our staff are so wonderful, we developed a plan and started to reopen our doors at the end of June. And we did that slowly so that we could make sure that we could keep everybody safe and healthy. And so by the end of the summer, we were back open 5 days a week, cleaning a lot. But, like I mentioned before, for some kids, Youth Go is the safest place they have. And so we wanted to make sure that we could offer this space to them with everything that was going on.
Great. Thank you, Kelly, and thank you to you and your staff again for all of your support for our community as well. Jamie, do you have anything you'd like to add in addition to what you've said about the pandemic?
Sure. Similar, everybody, we quickly shifted to virtual, still wanted to connect kids with that positive adult. So we were able to do enrollments and everything virtual, did a lot of our activities, either virtual or curbside pickup. And again, just kudos to our mentors. There were times where we had one mentor who created a song and was able to connect with his little virtually and be able to sing, and just being able to keep them connected was huge. And our volunteers deserve a lot for what they were able to commit to.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you to your staff as well. And Nicole, anything to add?
Yeah, so we were a little bit different when COVID hit, right? Childcare was considered an essential service, right? The governor actually asked centers to remain open. And so unlike most people who ended up shutting down, we really had to pivot to try to figure out how we could stay open safely and help support our staff who were obviously concerned about illness when you're working with children who can't distance. Right, there is no way to distance from infants and toddlers. There's lots of bodily fluids involved in our care. And we still had to figure out a way that we could do childcare, do high quality, remain responsive to our families, keep our relationships, and figure out how our business model would work when we were limited to 25% of our capacity for a while. And yet we still had a staff to support. So, our pivoting looked a little bit differently. We only had a 4-week closure, which was really due to when basically all of our families quickly left and there was only a few, right? We had to pivot into a new model. And then we actually expanded for the first time in Bridges' 48-year history. We had never served children over the age of 6 before. And in the fall, we found this group of school agers who had planned to go off to school in September, and then school started virtually, and their parents didn't know what to do. So we actually extended our childcare license to age 13, and for the first time operated a virtual learning room for children so that they could have additional one-to-one support with their schooling. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of changes and challenges. We're now just finally actually getting back up to that 80-90% capacity after a little over a year or so.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you again to you and your staff for that pivot. What a change, I'm sure, adding, those additional ages. Before we move on to one of our other questions, I do see a question in the Q&A that piggybacks off of, our COVID-19 pandemic that I would just like to throw out there. And the question is from Jean, who asks, are you seeing an impact from the federal funds, which are beginning to reach families and children? And I'll put that out to anyone who might like to answer that first.
Well, I can certainly speak to the fact that, we're very fortunate in the childcare arena, both on the federal and the state level, that there was recognition that without financial support, about 2/3 of centers expected they would not remain open. So we as a center have received a fair amount of support for operating expenses because of the losses that childcare sustained, as well as allowing us to do some things around staff retention and recruitment. Right, childcare is a very low paid field. Many staff do not have health insurance and things like that. And so some of those dollars were able to go in to offer hazard pay when our staff are open, and continue to try to give back to those staff even now with some of those states grants that have come through for us.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Anyone else have anything to add for your organization that you may be seeing, due to those federal funds? Okay, well, thank you all. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A, the chat, or raise your hand and we can take those. But we do have just another question of what are the top priorities that you're seeing in your organizations and that you'll be focusing on in the next year or two as we're, coming out of the pandemic? What do those next couple years look like for you? And I will start back in our rotation with Rachel.
Yeah, thanks. We're primarily focusing on recovery and then helping kids tap into their networks of support. It's important to us, we're trying to be really intentional about keeping a trauma sensitive response, meaning that we recognize that, the challenges that youth have been facing are coming from somewhere real. And keeping in mind that we can't expect a switch to flip and for things to be back to normal for them. So we're just focusing on being intentional, not expecting too much from them. So trying to be intentional around not pivoting away from new things that we developed due to the pandemic, like the meal service support. We plan to continue that as long as we can.
Great, thank you so much, Rachel. Kelly.
One of the things that we are going to put a focus on here at YouthGo is just to increase and enhance the training opportunities for our staff members. Putting a big focus on trauma-informed care practices and mental health trainings. We're seeing, I think Jamie kind of mentioned it before, I think it's going to get harder before it gets better. So I just want my staff to have all the tools that they need to best serve the young people that we're working with. Another thing is we do have quite a number of programs that take place within the schools, and we haven't been able to be in the schools for the last year and a half. So hopeful to be able to reinstate those programs. We do some peer discussion groups and also offer weekly tutoring. So we really are hopeful to get back into the schools and to continue to build those relationships. And work on reinstating programs here at the center that we've had to put on hold because of COVID, and making sure that we continue to offer and develop programs for the kids that we're seeing.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. Jamie, next couple years, what are some focus areas?
No matter what, we're still committed to serving the kids at whatever their needs are. But mentoring can't look the same as it did before COVID. So we're really looking at some new innovative ways to engage the matches, new business partners, and really recruitment is our biggest need moving forward. Similar to Kelly as well, not only our staff, but our volunteers, being able to give them the training and the tools that they need to best support the youth, because it does look very different than it did before COVID. So just going to put a little plug in there that we definitely need volunteers. We have over 85 kids waiting for that special adult. So if you're interested, you know where to find us.
Great, thank you so much, Jamie. Again, head to their website if you are interested and have the ability and capacity to be able to meet that need. That would be great. And Nicole, next few years, what are those focus areas?
Sure. So for us, we really recognize that workforce is going to be probably one of our biggest challenges in the next couple of years. Average turnover in childcare is about 1/3 of staff every year turnover in Wisconsin. And that was pre-COVID, right? Before probably every business was hiring in the community, and most of those businesses hire at a higher wage than childcare teachers make, even with an associate or bachelor's degree. So for us, we recognize that we can do great work and we can have wonderful outcomes for children and help kind of even out those numbers that Andrew talked about early on, and right, that getting all of those things before age 5 and hopefully kind of setting the trajectory for later success. However, we can't do that if we don't have a skilled and stable workforce. So we're, this last year we started a partnership with Catalpa Health to bring on-site mental health to our center. And really we saw for the last year that the staff were the ones that needed the mental health support, right? I mean, we're gonna see the after effects, like these other gals have said, that those children and families are gonna need that support. And I think we're gonna see that coming even more, but we had to start supporting our staff. Not only during the pandemic, but here as we move forward and find ways that they feel prepared. Their compassion fatigue is real, right? They're caring for families, they're seeing these challenging behaviors and the effects of trauma. And it's a very, very stressful job. Being a teacher, right? They say that a teacher makes more split-second decisions in an hour than a brain surgeon. Right, so it's a very stressful job, and we have to figure out how to support those teachers and supplement their wages if we want to continue to do the work, right? Especially when we're looking at the childcare deserts in the state and seeing all those gaps in care that families, with all the resources can't even find available childcare. What about our families that have those barriers in the community? So that's really going to be our focus for the next year is the affordability and accessibility for families, but also looking at how we support our workforce so that we can continue to do the work we do.
Great, thank you, Nicole, and thank you, for answering that information about education and really holistically, not just students, but our staff as well. It sounds like you all have some really great plans for supporting staff through this pandemic time and moving forward, and that's really great because we know, obviously, as Nicole said, yes, that's very real. Great. So we do have a couple more minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions out there that are lingering, again, please feel free to put those in the Q&A or the chat or raise your hand. As we're giving people some time to ask those questions, I would just throw it out there. If anyone has any information about maybe any summer programs or activities that you would like to promote, or any information about summer programming as we're in the thick of that, if anyone has anything they want to share.
And I'll also add to that for our panelists, just Jamie touched on a little bit, if you have volunteer opportunities or ways people can help, besides mentoring, are there other ways people can help your agencies and organizations that they're looking to do so?
I mean, same as Jamie kind of said, we're also always looking for volunteers. We have dozens of different options, and we can really tailor our kind of opportunities to different passions and things like that. Just like Jamie said, we have opportunities to come in and work directly with youth. We have opportunities to come and be a page turners, literacy interventionalist, support tutor. We have opportunities to provide support with food service and all that. So we are absolutely also always looking for volunteers.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Any other volunteer opportunities or upcoming events that you'd like to share?
Hopefully next year. We're still limiting the extra adults that we bring into our building for the safety of our young people and our staff, and have had to cancel and adjust special events. So I'm hoping that 2022 is our year. So.
Great, thank you. Fingers crossed, right? Hopefully. Great. Well, let's see. We just had a question come up in the Q&A here, asking collaboration with school districts. It appears that collaboration dropped during COVID. Are your organizations experiencing an increase in the level?
I think we lost your volume. Not sure what happened. At least I did. I'm sorry.
Is that any better?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay. Sorry about that. Not sure where we left off, so I will just start that again. Collaboration with the school district. It appears that collaboration dropped during COVID. Are your organizations experiencing an increase in the level of collaboration over the last few months? So if anyone has anything they could speak to for that. feel free.
I can start. We definitely seen a decrease in our school-based programs during last school year, but great conversations with all of our school partners, and I know they still have a lot of decisions to make, but it sounds hopeful. So we are, preparing for being back in the schools in the fall if that all works out. Workplaces is another one of our big partners, and just again, I think it's going to be month by month as everybody just figures out what their work environment will look like come fall. But we are hoping that we can bring our matches back to in person come the fall.
Great, thank you, Jamie. Any other of our panelists? Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, even though we weren't able to be in the buildings like we would have liked, still had great support from administration and the school counselors to help to get the word out about our programming and what was going on here at the center. And we've been left with, hopefully things will be back to allowing, outside people into the school buildings next year. So.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Rachel or Nicole, anything you're seeing?
I mean, our collaboration with our school districts, it actually probably increased with the pandemic just because of the programs that we operate in the schools and the after school support. So like I mentioned, with Appleton Area School District providing the Classroom Connections program, I think our partnership got stronger through that process. And then with Little Chute, we did actually expand into a whole nother location within Little Chute. So for us, it's kind of gotten even a little bit more robust, which has been wonderful. We're so thankful.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Megan, we also really had opportunities that we didn't have pre-COVID, right? Having those school agers here, did open up some different collaborations, I think, and learning opportunities for us. And because we are located in the Community Early Learning Center, we've tried to continue our relationship with Appleton School District as we looked at our COVID protocols and our guidance, ways that we could help one another. Certainly we're hoping for increased enrollment in the fall, hoping that 4K will be back in person and we'll see those numbers go back up. But like Rachel, there was some silver linings to COVID, and for some of us, it increased the opportunities to work together.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Not seeing any other questions popping up. Again, if you do have those, feel free to put those in and we could always get those quickly at the end. Otherwise, thank you again to all of our panelists for taking time today and giving us kind of a status update of what you're seeing in education and next steps moving forward. And thank you again to all of you and your staff for the great work that you did during COVID, because the education of our youth obviously is so very important to bridge that during this time. So thank you all, but I will hand it back over to Andrew.
All right, thank you very much, Megan. And I'll echo Megan's comments. Thank you all to our panelists and to those of you that attended as well. I'm going to share my screen one last time here. And maybe I can bring up the chat. Hey, it's working this time. Awesome. So I can see your responses. So I would love to hear from our audience. How many children and youth do you think were helped by tutoring or after-school educational programs in 2020 by United Way funded programs, such as the 4 you heard from and a few others? So any brave souls want to chat any numbers that you think how many we had an impact on here in the Fox Cities? Got to be at least one brave soul out there. 5,000. Thank you, Greg, for being brave. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to take a gander? All right. Oh, 1 in 3. Wonderful. Jenny, I love how you think. I really appreciate that. That is incredible. But the actual number here is going to be just over 6,000 last year in 2020. Over 6,000 children and youth were helped by tutoring and after-school programs. So just an incredible number, and you can see the wide and huge impact that our wonderful partners have here in the Fox Cities. So another trivia for you, fact or fiction, 61% of families in poverty have 0 books in their house. What do you think, fact or fiction? And I see Jenny saying that's fact. Anyone else? Okay, I'm seeing another fact come in here. A couple more facts. Sandy's fact exclamation point, and Sandy would be right on. So we are very focused at United Way Fox Cities in making sure that all children have books in their home, because research shows one of the very easiest ways to provide that solid foundation for early literacy isn't a prescriptive strategy like read 10 minutes a night or anything. It's make sure they have a home library of books. It all starts with having books at home. So we're very focused on making sure we try to get as many books as possible out. And last year, over 82,000 were distributed, and we're continuing that to this day. Also want to touch on another program that we invest in at United Way Fox Cities that we're very proud of. It's called the Reach Out and Read program. It's a partnership with the, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. Partnership with the Appleton Public Library and local healthcare clinics. And all children ages 6 months to 5 years that go to their well child checkups get a free book. And there's pediatricians work with the parents and the children to provide education and modeling of how to kind of read to their children and help provide that solid foundation for early literacy. So we're very proud of this program, and our funding supports all the clinics in the Fox Cities that partner with us in the Reach Out and Read program. And it's an incredible program, and some of you may have benefit, or your kids may have benefited from that in getting books when they go to their well child checkup. So how can you help? How can you get back? Our partners gave some ideas on how you can directly help them in their organizations by mentoring or going and volunteering. You can also make sure people are aware of 211, or if you yourself need help with the challenge you're facing in your life, and it's not an emergency, which of course would be a 911 call, the answer is 211. It's available 24/7. We currently operate a 10-county area here at United Way Fox Cities. And last year alone, we received over 20,000 calls to our 211 information and referral service, which really helps us give an idea not only of why people are calling, but really helps us direct them to get the solutions they need in their lives. So another way you can help, of course, is to invest in United Way Fox Cities, which is investing in some of our wonderful partners that you heard from today and all of our partners that we work with. And as you can see in the screen in front of you, it doesn't take a lot to make a huge difference in people's lives. Even as little as $1 a week, you can feed 12 children that are living in poverty a hot, nutritious meal after school. And you can build a low-income girl's confidence and courage through scouting. So there is a lot that can be done with a little bit. So please consider, if you don't already, in investing in United Way. And if you do, thank you so much for that, and we hope you continue that. We have a great impact, and we're very proud of it. And as Jenny so aptly pointed out in our chat box, we impact 1 in 3 in the Fox Cities, and we're very proud of that, and we're very proud to continue that moving forward. And it all starts with you, which is what makes everything possible, what makes the wonderful partners that we have possible. It starts with all of you investing and believing and helping to support all of us. So thank you so much again. We greatly appreciate it. And last but not least, we hope you join us for our part 3 of our series coming up next in July on the 28th, and that'll be focused on financial stability. And we'll have some more wonderful partners to share information about the great work they do in that arena. So with that, we do have a few minutes. Are there any additional last-minute questions that people have they'd like to ask or throw in the chat? Okay, seeing none, I want to, just like Peter did in the chat, thank all of our panelists and our attendees for attending. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Andrew, I did just see one question come in the Q&A from Greg. In his experience, nonprofits and specifically education seem to have far fewer males than females operating within their sectors. Have any of you seen an increase in male applicants or volunteers? If not, do you have any thoughts on what needs to be done to increase those numbers? So thank you, Greg, for that question. If I'll let anyone who may have an answer to that feel free to go. Or to share your answer, I should say, not go.
Well, I can start that one, Megan, in that it's a resounding no. I wish I could say otherwise, right? From doing this for 25 years, it's rare. I have one gentleman on staff right now, which is a recent graduate of Lawrence University who came here as a student and then stayed on after graduation. But for us, I think, how do we change that? The biggest issue for us is change the wage, right? Men do not want to enter early childhood because it's not a way that you can financially support a family. So until we change that, I don't think we're ever really going to see males teaching in early childhood education, unfortunately.
Thank you, Nicole. Rachel, Kelly, or Jamie, do you have any thoughts or anything you're seeing related to that? Jamie, go ahead.
Similar to Nicole, on staff, we do not have any males. We continue to have our biggest need is for male mentors. Out of the 85 that are waiting for a mentor, over half of them are young males. And I don't have the magic solution. I think it's really around messaging and making sure we're providing programs that are of interest to male volunteers as well. So definitely something we are working towards in the upcoming years.
For us, I think it just kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. I mean, 10 years ago, we had more male full-time staff members than female. Right now, we've got of our 12 staff, 3 of them are male. So it's a little bit different, I think, for us than for Nicole. Yeah, I don't have an answer. For us, we just try to bring in the people that we think will best fit with our youth. I don't know, Rachel, what you guys see at the Boys and Girls Club, but it's just one of those things where you just hope you're bringing in the right person to have the biggest impact.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts kind of agree. I would say that ours also sorts of ebbs and flows. It depends on the program. Our sports and rec programs are definitely, they have more of the male staff. Our STAR program has a good number of males on that team. So it definitely depends on, like Jamie said, the kind of programs that are being offered and what the job expectations are for sure. But as far as our kind of just general youth development specialists, so those staff members who are directly, frontline on the floor with the kids, definitely female dominated in the staff members there. And I also don't have the magic solution either.
Great, thank you all for answering that question. And thank you, Greg, for raising that question to the light. Obviously, very important thing to think about. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we do have a few more minutes. So if there are any other questions, feel free to throw those in. Otherwise, we're going to give all of you a few minutes back in your day, which I know you all appreciate. So seeing none come in, I think we'll end this. So thank you once again to our panelists and to all of our attendees, and we hope to see you all in July. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.